After Christopher died, we went away for a week away to get away from things. And in that week, we decided that we'd start the charity. And we thought, what would we call it? And it came to be sort of what we were thinking about different names. And then we said, well, what do we miss the most? That's the name of the charity. Our objective is to introduce new targeted treatments for children. And we want to see children not only survive, but reach adulthood enjoying a good quality of life, unaffected by their cancer treatments in the longer term.
Chemotherapy and radiotherapy leave lifelong side effects, and quite severe in many instances. And what we want to see is a move, a big step change away from that, so that children can actually survive the cancers and live what we would call with a good quality of life into adulthood. And at the moment, we don't believe that that's often the case.
Children will continue to be treated with chemotherapy drugs, and we have reached just about the end of the road with their development. We can't seem to get better outcomes using the existing treatments. We've plateaued with some types of cancers. We've actually funded the development of a next generation sequencing test which tests and analyses the DNA of children's tumours. The data that the test will produce will help children in the future.
The sooner we can get the data, the sooner we can move forward and start looking at access of drugs to treat the mutations that this sequencing test is actually throwing up. We know that some children have had their treatment plans changed on the basis of the results of the test. We want more children to have access to that, and it represents a huge step forward in terms of what we hope will be new treatments in the future.
That test is now in common use at the Royal Marsden Hospital and at Great Ormond Street, and we are doing all we can to get that test rolled out to the rest of the UK as quickly as possible.
We're finding it's taking a very long time to actually get this test out there. It's almost as though children are discriminated against in terms of the treatments. You know, new drugs are available for the bigger adult diseases, but children don't have that. Is that right? We don't believe it is. But we're fighting against big financiers, and that's the challenge.
The number of children diagnosed with cancer is a mere tiny proportion of all cancer diagnosis. And the largest market for new cancer drugs is adults. We can't change that. And you can't blame the drug companies for pursuing the adult market, because that's where the larger market is, that's where the profits are. But if some of those drugs need to be tested in children, because they will hit the same targets, children need a completely separate set of clinical trials, which are very expensive. And unfortunately, the cost of those trials is not commensurate with the number of children that will ultimately use the drugs. So we have this tiny market, these huge costs, and really an unwillingness to spend the money at this time.
We've known cases where a drug's shown promise in the early stages for a child malignancy, but the pharmaceuticals have decided not to pursue that, so that drug's been pulled. Nothing anyone can do. It's their drug, they set the rules. And if the legislation allows that, that's what they do.
We've got to come up with a solution which involves the pharmaceutical industry, which involves funding bodies such as governments, parents, regulators, and of course the researchers. I don't want parents to go through what we've been through, and I certainly don't want children to go through what Christopher went through. And our experiences have left us with a sense of determination that things should change.